نشوف بتفطر على خير إن شاء الله. Today's panel discussion is going to...
Oh, he's fine.
Is that me?
Is that you, sweetie?
So today's panel discussion is going to be with 5 amazing organizations, 4 of them in the United States. And we'll be talking a bit about each organization and the Sudan Safe Initiative that they've collaborated together on. And I'm just going to start by introducing myself. I'm Ahmed Ali. I'm part of the SDN, and I'm currently based in the United Arab Emirates. And I'm really pleased to have all of you here today because we're going to discuss some important things that I think everyone should help and support. So, Ala, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey guys.
Helping me?
So I'm going to be mediating the panel discussion with Ahmed. My name's Ala. I am currently in the UK, but I was based in the US, and I am a part of SDN as well and part of this awesome coalition team.
Welcome, welcome.
That's great. Raida, do you want to go next and introduce yourself and give us a background about your organization and what type of work you've been doing? I think you're on mute, Raida.
Yes.
Yes, it was. Great. So my name is Laida Mahjoub. I am also part of SDN. I'm here based in the US. SDN started about January of last year, so 2019, right around the same time of as the revolution. And the purpose of it was kind of to bring together Sudanese around the world and to help support with the revolution, but also it kind of progressed as the revolution progressed into also going forth into sustainable development in Sudan and doing different projects. So we'll talk about those again later today.
Wonderful. Noon, would you like to go next? Introduce yourself.
I am Noon, representing MFS, which is Moving Forward Sudan. We're based in the DMV. I'm currently in Alexandria, Virginia. MFS was founded by a group of professionals some years ago to really cater to the Sudanese community. It's currently led by 5 super brilliant females in the DMV. We mostly focus on youth enrichment programs, as well as just trying to really connect the diaspora together. It's been a great opportunity right now to collaborate with other organizations in the US, and that's all.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mazen Khalil, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hey everybody, so I am Mazen Khalil and I am representing SIN, the Sudanese Youth Network, and SAND, which is Sudanese Americans for Nonviolent Demonstrations. SAND kind of began in December of 2018 when the revolution began. So we were the ones who hosted the protests that happened in DC from January up until April. Alhamdulillah, that was a really awesome team. And then SIN, which is the Sudanese Youth Network, was kind of born in 2017. And it was basically to connect a bunch of Sudanese youth together because we realized that we just didn't have anything besides haflat that connected us. So we wanted to do something a little bit more than that.
Nice. Next, we have Mohammed Youssef from the Sudani American Collective.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So yeah, my name is Mohammed Youssef, representing Sudani American Collective. We're based out of here in Minnesota, the Twin Cities. And yeah, we kind of got started pretty much similar story to everybody around the revolution time. Specifically for us, it was after Fadl al-I'tisam, when we got super active. And it was reactionary to the revolution, but after that, once the revolution's finished, you ask yourself, what are you there for now? What's your purpose? And I think that's where we're sort of like finding ourselves, is really just focusing on the diaspora here in Minnesota, but also internationally, right? So we're figuring out how to make like Sudanese people's lives easier in Minnesota, whether it's the youth, whether it's the adults, or whether it's, the relationship between them. But then taking it further, and how do you take what you learned, your expertise and all of that, and then transfer it back to Sudan and essentially make a better world and a better life for our family and friends back home, but as well as like right here around us, because let's be real, this is our home also.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I'm just hearing all these like introductions and into these different organizations. I can see like similarities between most of your missions, you know, which is the end goal, helping out in Sudan and helping to build a better Sudan. So that's great to see. I think, yeah, go ahead.
Tweety,
Ella.
I think you're going to say it, but I think we have one more org, Sama Junior, who Rawan should be joining us as soon as she can, just a little bit of a delay. So in the meantime, Ahmed, sorry, I won't call you by nickname. Sorry, keep it professional. We came up with, we wanted to do an icebreaker with the coalition team. So it's a little bit of a tradition in SDN. It started off in the conference. Fatma had done it the other day on live with Muhammad Mustafa from Phil Hart. So we wanted to do it with you guys. Series of 5 questions. You got to choose one or the other. So I will start off. كركدة or حلمور?
كركدة.
Yes.
What about you guys?
I would say كركدة.
Team Kerkede is winning.
Team Kerkede.
I still Ahmed though, but Kerkede, you know.
Can never go wrong.
Am I the only one who supports Hello
Team
More?
Hello More,
Wow.
yeah. The only one.
Wow.
Okay, so the next one, would you like to do it, Tweety?
Yeah, sure. So the next one is Team's Team or Team Vizianos?
Vizianos.
Vizianos, 100%.
Oh, that's a controversial one.
Vizianos is the OG. I feel like Steam came a little after Vizianos.
I think it did. It definitely did. I see some people in the chat are like going all
once
on.
Again.
Okay.
Once again, I'm Team's Team. I don't know why.
I'm Team's Team too.
Different.
I'm on your team.
Oh, that's good.
We're on the same team.
That's good.
All right, next one. Basbousa or kunafa?
Kunafa.
Oh.
Kunafa.
Mazin, we haven't heard from you. Which one?
Kunafa محشية بكريمة or kunafa sada?
Up to you. Any type of kunafa.
All the types.
Oh man, that's tough. If it's kunafa, it has to be kunafa محشية بكريمة.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm gonna go with basbousa. I've had bad experiences with kunafa.
Yeah.
I don't get along. So.
Tweety, you go. Sorry,
Okay,
Ahmed.
next.
I'll stop saying.
Yeah. Next was Asida or Kisra.
Kisra. All the way.
I'm gonna go Asida.
Wow, that is really tough.
Kisra and Rasa.
Both. You can say both.
Halfawi me is gonna say Kisra. That's it. You know, like.
All right, last
Okay,
one. The last one. Okay, mulahweka or I don't want to say that word because I think I'm going to say it wrong. Or mulah salid. Is that what you said?
Salid.
I don't even know what the second one is. Wake all day.
Oh man.
Okay.
All right.
I support that too.
We've got a lot of people saying Kisra and Kunafa. I'm surprised. Okay, so nice. A lot of Team Ketkade in the comments, so that's great. All right, so that was a little icebreaker. Thank you for sharing with us about your organizations. At the end of this panel discussion, we want to open it up to questions. There's already quite a few in the chat, but also you guys can talk about how people can get involved with each of the organizations and the coalition. So, Ahmed, would you like to start us off with the first question?
All right, yeah, we can start off and then when Sama, who's representing the Sama again?
It's going to be Rawan, because Dr. Mohammed
when Rawan joins, we can fill her in. Okay, so my first question has to be like, how is this coalition formed? Like, how did all these 5 different organizations get together and form this? So you guys can go ahead as you please.
From what I recall, back in January, end of January, beginning of February, really, or maybe mid-February, we had a meeting, MFS, with Alight and another organization based in the DMV. I forgot their names, honestly. And right after that first meeting, had a second one, and that's when we invited SDN. And I guess on the background, SDN already had connections with Elite. And after that second meeting, that's when we decided, that's when actually COVID-19 was developing. And by the third meeting, we had decided to come into one big WhatsApp group, and it kind of developed from there. But correct me if I'm wrong. That's the brief history.
That's great. That's great. Anyone else who's next wants to go next?
Yeah, I can go next. So I think it's interesting to hear her perspective, because mine is kind of different, but kind of similar, or they cross paths at a certain.
Yeah, because in the background, a lot of other things were going on too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, essentially, it started. It started when we went to Ohio for a Sudanese conference over there. Yes, that's Ala, Tabarak, and Ghaida. And it was more like, just getting to know them, actually getting to know SDN for the first time. I met like their entire team, Tartil, Ihab, also, I'm sorry if I'm missing anybody, Nafisa. But we-
Shout out to all the members.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop there. But it was essentially like talking to them and then figuring out that they also had a connection to Elite, because Elite is based out of here, Minneapolis. And then it was just like this thing where, why are we doing all of these separate efforts trying to do the same thing with similar organizations? So it was like more of us starting the conversation there in Ohio, where it's like, we just talked about it, right? And hey, what does coming together look like, and can we make it happen so that we can make it easier for organizations and NGOs to work with us, and so that we're able to do better work and actually use our talents for like the greater good, right? And then after each of us went back to their states and their cities, we just stayed connected. We stayed connected and started talking about how we can kickstart this. And I guess that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And there, we're here now.
That's beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful hearing like the different sides of the stories.
We came in a little later.
So actually, I think we were the last organization to come in. I got a call. Well, actually, I got a message from one of the SDM members, and he was basically like, I can either tell you this here or I can call you. And I was like, all right, well, I guess, just give me a call. That'll make life a lot easier. And then from there, he kind of broke down things for me, and he was like, this is what we're doing. This is what's going on. And we would appreciate it, if you guys hopped on, because you guys have a lot of connections and so on and so forth. And from there, I just got to meet a bunch of like really great and amazing folks.
That's great. That's amazing. Ghaida, do you want to say in terms of, sorry, the screen's just gone.
Yeah.
SDN?
From the SDN perspective, we were kind of in the middle. So we had both the experience with meeting with Elite and moving forward Sudan. And then after that, we also went to Ohio and met all the other Sudanese organizations as well. So the Ohio conference was a joint South Sudanese and North Sudanese conference. It was pretty cool to see all different Sudanese from different places and different states come together into one huge conference. So that's where it kind of sparked the idea of there's so much great talent, but together we could make a much bigger impact. And so it kind of sparked the idea of just like pulling together all of our talents and our ambitions and such to become one big force.
That's beautiful. So in terms of like coming together, the whole process, did you guys face any difficulties or obstacles? How did you find this process of collaborating with 4 different orgs?
Oh man, I can start a little bit. First of all, I see that I'm being called out on the chat for being a Viking fan. Amro, take it elsewhere, my friend. Vikings all day. But I'd say the biggest challenge that I find that we went through was time zone difference. Like, I'll be completely honest about it. I say that was like the biggest challenge, and it's not even that big of a challenge. Like, I remember the first meeting, we were late about an hour because they said 7 o'clock, and then 7 o'clock for us is 8 o'clock. So I told everybody show up at 8 o'clock. They were talking about Eastern. I was talking about Central Time. So now every time we're like posting on the chat and just trying to figure out time zones, it's like you write them in 3 different time zones so everybody knows which one we're talking about. But other than that, I say like there was no challenges, you know. Obviously figuring out who people are, sort of you know, where their strengths are, where their weaknesses are, that comes naturally. And with any organization, you need to figure that out before you create like a well-oiled system. So I think like there's still a bit of that, of discovering who is good at what and using them for their strength. But other than that, like it's been great. Like everybody here has the same mission. Everybody here has the same passion. And ultimately, like one of the most important things for me is that I noticed that nobody has an issue like with pride, right? And I think pride ruins everything. So nobody here is like, no, this is my organization, let's lead with this name, or no, this is our initiative, why are we taking a step back and giving credit to these other 4 organizations, right? So it's more like, you know, we're all actually passionate about the solution and we're working towards it. So I think that was like the most thing. Like if I sensed a single ounce of pride or Adam's weight, as in the Quran says, right, I would have been like, okay, there's going to be some issues here, let's take a step back and figure things out. But alhamdulillah, everybody in my screen right now is amazing, and everybody on the chat, even if they're saying bad stuff about things, is amazing. So I think that was like, that's alhamdulillah, it's been great.
Alhamdulillah.
Just to piggyback off of that, I think one of the I think Mohammed is correct with the whole time zone thing. Even just trying to coordinate this yesterday, we're like, all right, is it Eastern time? Are we 1 hour behind? Is everybody like, how does that work? You know? So I think that's probably been the biggest challenge that we faced. I think, you know, like us coming in last, Sin coming in last into this coalition, really showed us just like, you know, how involved everybody else was and just how dedicated everybody else was to this thing, because we came in and like the infrastructure was all set up, you know. So for us, it was a very smooth transition. We just plugged into the system and kind of got going. And everybody, as Mohammed said, you know, is very selfless. Nobody's like, this is my initiative, this is my org, this is our name, this is, you know, that doesn't exist here. So alhamdulillah, like it's we haven't really had any challenges, and we're very appreciative of that.
That's great. Alhamdulillah.
I think one thing to point out with sort of our generation and the youth of today, it's all about wanting to do good. And how do you do good? It's not about the person themselves, it's about the bigger picture and the bigger collective and what you're trying to achieve in the next 10 years, 20 years. It's not necessarily just right here and right now. So actually getting to see how the coalition works together and having you guys all here on this live and talking about it, it doesn't feel like it's 4 different or 5 different organizations. It feels like it's a Sudanese organization led by the youth and young professionals. Like it's all for Sudan. And I think that's what makes that really special. And so that kind of leads me on to my next question in terms of how do you, what kind of advice would you give for separate organizations that are trying to work together and trying to do something, because every organization has a mission and every organization is trying to achieve something, but there's always strength in numbers, right? What kind of advice would you give to other organizations across the world that are trying to do something similar, that are trying to collaborate? And also my second part to that question is, when you're reached out by these bigger, more defined organizations like Alight, like USA, what is the advice that you would give yourself if this was a year ago? What advice would you give your organization a year ago in terms of how to deal with that and navigate that going forward?
As for advice for other organizations that are trying to do the same thing and collaborate with others, just don't hesitate. I think you should just take that initiative and ask. whether it's a DM, it's an email, you should go for it and set up a small chat meeting with you and a party from other team and just figure out the similarities and where you can take your talents and you joining forces. You should just definitely go for it. The worst that can happen is sorry, there's no middle ground. We don't agree in a lot of things and we're just not interested, but we can keep in touch.
Yeah.
Yeah. The worst that can happen.
That's the worst, exactly.
But yeah.
True.
I mean, I think for collaborations, as Noon just said, just figuring out what your strengths are. But I'd also add on what your differences are, because sometimes, your differences bring about really unique projects. So, for example, like one time I was working in college, and I realized that like these two completely different organizations had completely different initiatives, and nothing would have ever caused those two to work together. So just putting those two in a group together just brought about a really, really cool project. And so, just the differences sometimes may be insurmountable, as she said, but sometimes those differences can bring about, like really creative solutions to problems that you haven't even thought of. So just, in addition to that, don't be afraid to ask for help. I think asking for help is one of the biggest things that we're afraid of, because everybody wants to have the answer, and everybody wants to seem well put together and whatnot. But asking for help is one of the biggest signs of strength, and being able to go to somebody else and say, you've done this better than I have. Can you show me how you're doing this? Or can you help me help myself to do this? That's a sign of strength as well.
It's really beautiful.
And to go off on that, I think one of the cool things that happened was meeting in person with these different groups. So I would say like one advice is, if you have the option to, maybe just once a year, try to get everybody together, and like that in-person interaction, you see similarities and you see different things that you wouldn't be able to see just through like emails and messages and that kind of thing. So I think it also brings a lot more creativity when you're able to all come together in person, spark different ideas. And I'm sure, like, for example, with SDN, even though we're based all around the world, that conference in Sudan probably had a huge kind of, I wasn't there, so I don't know what I'm talking about, but.
You're right.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, with organizations, when you come together and meet in person, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And ultimately, like, as Nike says, just do it, right? Like Noon said it, just reach out. And like, the worst that can happen is rejection, but what's the best that can happen, right? Like, if you think about it, I'm gonna take this into a weird place, but Eminem started by finding Dr. Dre in like California. I think it was in a beach. He was in a yellow jumpsuit, and he just decided to freestyle for him, right? And the rest is history. Now they both built legacies that are going to be here forever, right? So like the whole point is just go do it. Like with anything in life, if you get rejected, you move on. Maybe you lose a few hours of sleep. You cry a little bit. Who knows, right? However you deal with things. But in Muhims, like, you get rejected, you move on. It works out. The results are amazing. So I think it's just like, just go ahead, reach out to, and that applies honestly to anything in your life. Like if you want something, just reach out, go try to get it. If it doesn't work out, alhamdulillah. If it works out, alhamdulillah, you move on.
You're right. And another thing is, from just reaching out, if you were to get rejected, they're most likely going to connect you to somebody else or to another organization that could fit into what you're looking to collaborate in. Mm-hmm. So either way, it's a win-win from reaching
awesome.
out.
I want to quickly introduce Rowan. She's just made it onto the live chat. So hi, Rowan. How are you?
Hi, Sanam. I didn't want to interrupt anybody. Ramadan Kareem. Allahu Akram. Inshallah tasumu taftar ala khair. I'm sorry I jumped on really late.
You're good.
But I didn't want to interrupt anybody. I believe you guys are on your third point, correct?
Yes, but if you want to
Yeah.
introduce yourself and Sama as well, that would be great.
Of course. I am the current co-executive chair for Sama Junior. We aim to spread health information and educate our community, our local community, even the Sudanese diaspora, on the current health issues or pandemics that is going on and how to navigate through anything that could come awry. So inshallah, with the collaboration of SAMA, the official chapter, it's, I guess, the founding chapter, we hope to kind of to move forward with our mission, and hopefully we can make each other healthier.
Inshallah.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Noon, I
just
think
to
you were going to
quickly-
finish up something real quick. Or Ahmed, go for it, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I think there's like a 20 seconds delay
Yeah.
between YouTube and Zoom.
Oh.
But yeah, I was just gonna fill Rowan in and just tell her like, basically we just discussed how the coalition was formed and, you know, the importance of collaboration between organizations and any advice you have for new organizations that are trying to do the same. And mashallah,
Up something real quick.
everyone.
Ahmed, go for it, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I think 20 seconds delay between YouTube and Zoom.
Oh.
But yeah, I was just gonna fill Rowan in and just tell her like, can you guys hear me now? Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you haven't heard let me just repeat the last. I was just telling Rowan, basically we discussed how the coalition was formed and you know, the importance of collaboration and any advice for new organizations that are trying to do the same. So sorry, Noon, I think I interrupted you before you wanted to say something.
No, it's pretty much done, but I think collaborating is really important. Not only will it move, expand the organization as a unit, but individually as, for yourself, it's, you're stepping out of your comfort zone. For me, especially, I'm stepping completely out of my comfort zone by meeting a whole lot of people through social media, really. That's what it is. So you're benefiting your organization. You're also growing as an individual, and you're growing.
Beautiful. And so the second part to the question to you guys was, I think every organization here has had a chance to be connected to a larger organization, international organizations like Alight, like USAID, UNICEF, UNDP. Now, what advice would you give to yourself now that you know what you know about navigating those much bigger organizations and working with them, to someone who's starting off in a small organization? What advice would you give to yourself back, say, a year ago when you just met that organization, and how you navigate it and handle it?
I guess I can go.
Go for it.
So I think, so one thing we always need to realize, like, no matter how big an organization is or how small it is, at the end of the day, it's still being run by humans, right? And humans act and talk and think like humans, and you're a human too, right? So there's like a few things to keep in mind, right? And one of them, Sadia, one of our team members, just messaged me about it too. But like, one of the most important things is going in with a clear vision, right? Like, people need a clear vision to act on, right? If you go with sort of this empty box, and then, or not even a box, you just tell them to draw something, right? Like, a lot of people don't know how to start from nothing, right? But if you give them a clear vision, if you go in with a plan, step A, step 2, step B, step C, right? Or phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, however you plan it out, and it's all clear, it makes things a lot easier. So I think that's like maybe the most thing that I learned is just go in with a clear vision, know exactly what you want, and know how to make it happen. And just realize, like, don't be afraid. Those are humans just like you. And if you're working with the correct organization that has similar mission, that once again sort of aligns with you in terms of egoless people and no pride and all of that, then ultimately they're going to accept what you're proposing, and they're going to receive it with open arms, right? So just go in with a clear vision, know exactly what you want, and be competent when you're delivering it.
I think kind of to build off of that just a little bit, also in knowing what you want in your vision, don't be afraid to say no. You know, sometimes people are going to ask you to step out of what your vision is and what your mission statement is. And it's okay to be like, wait, listen, like, this isn't what we signed up for. You know, there's nothing wrong with saying that. And putting that out there may actually, you know, get whatever organization that you're working with to kind of reconsider just a little bit and to compromise and, you know, to reach a middle ground somewhere along the way where, you know, your respective mission statement or your respective goal is being met and theirs is as well. And there's nothing wrong with that.
I think it's also knowing your capacity as an organization. You know, don't take on more than what your organization can handle. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and did you have anything to add to that, maybe?
I actually don't have as much experience as my other colleagues here because I actually just joined the coalition. So I feel like it might be similar to what I've experienced before to speak to a lot of other people's points. There is a sense of you have to have an idea of what your vision is and then how they can contribute to it, especially with partnering up with bigger companies or people that are really well acquainted with the things that they're used to in terms of nonprofit work. They might actually be able to blow up that vision that you have and collaborate by giving you ideas on how to expand it and expand to where your target group make it bigger. So I think there's a lot of benefits, obviously, but there is some hiccups along the way, which is to be anticipated. So again, I don't really have much experience, but from what I have in other fields, that's what I gathered.
That was great. Thank you.
Add
That's
to that,
beautiful.
so these organizations, these large organizations, they're kind of at the high level, so they're really detached from what's happening on the ground. And so basically they're reaching out to you because you are a subject matter expert. You know more than they would on what's needed and what's happening, and like these different cultural aspects and these different like nuances that they do not have access to, or they don't understand at all. And so you're really their subject matter expert, and you have the power to really change narratives. You really have the power to scope the idea, to scope even the methodology that's being used. And so we're serving as a platform, and we really need to use that to raise the voices of those who are being helped. And so basically what you want to do is you want to basically kind of tap into what are the actual needs, what's happening on the ground, what's needed, and uplift those voices. And basically they're trying to meet a need, they're trying to assist with something, and we're here trying to show them like this is the actual needs, like this is the reality. And so that really helps to address the direct needs and the actual needs rather than what we think is needed.
That's beautiful. Thank you guys for your answers. So next we'll move on to the, we can say maybe the fruit project of this coalition. You guys came together and it's what you're working on now, the Sudan a Safe initiative. So if you could tell me a bit about that initiative and maybe some of the targets and how you plan on achieving those targets. And feel free to answer as you.
We have several initiatives going on. I can speak a little bit more about maybe the sanitizing. I know Mohammed is also on this call, so he can help out. We're currently working on an informational handout to pass out. And the point of the informational handout is to make sure that everybody is aware of what's going on with the pandemic, on how to prevent themselves. And we try to target specifically Sudanese people. So we try to make everything very culturally sensitive by even like the littlest details. For hand washing, we have a Sudanese henna hand washing their hands. Things that don't drink from the zir, things that are very culturally specific so that they can make it actionable. So translating information could be easy if you come from an outsider, but being able to make it culturally specific is very important for them to relate to the content and also to enact what the content is saying. So part of that initiative, anybody step in, but we do have University of Sudan creating sanitizing products for hospitals and also for general public so that they can practice safe precautions to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. And then also there's another initiative. I know just the basics if anybody wants to jump in, but there's a family initiative that we're working with another organization on. Is it Philahart? I don't know.
Philahart, yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you got it.
So they're creating Ramadan packages to further the stay-at-home initiative, which is also another safety precaution against coronavirus. So these are really big projects that we're fundraising for and we're planning for. And inshallah, I think we're slowly expanding into other projects, but those are the two main focuses from what I gathered.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary of it. So it's pretty much our fundraising efforts are going to support right now the University of Sudan chemistry department to create hand sanitizers. It was previously to create hand sanitizers to pass out to people on the street. But now the focus kind of shifted because now that Ramadan and the Hazr and all of that is happening, there's not as many people on the street. There still are, but now it's more changing towards creating hand sanitizers and equipment to help sort of the hospital system in Sudan. And by the way, launchgood.com/Sudan is safe, okay, to donate and help. And then the other thing is the Philahart, as she said. There's a couple other projects that we're working on. There's like a web portal that a few of us are working on to sort of really bring together all the different organizations and parties in Sudan that are both raising money, but that are also in need of, and not only raising money and equipment, but also the ones that are in need of money and or equipment, right? So to create the system where organizations and hospitals and people are really contributing to each other and sharing everything, right? Sharing. So for example, if hospital A needs 3 ventilators and hospital B has 2 extra ventilators, then how can you create a system where these two parts are connected and they're able to share resources and, you know, just create a more efficient system in Sudan to be able to tackle COVID-19. There's another initiative that is in the works that also hopefully will involve a lot of big organizations both in Sudan and outside of Sudan. I'll just keep it on the low right now, but it's also happening within this coalition. So the whole point being is that like there's a lot of great ideas that are happening and lots of thought process behind all of it. And it's all due to these like great people that otherwise we would have never had the chance to work with. But you know, there's a lot of good things happening. So we need your support. And if I didn't say it already, launchgood.com/Sudan is safe.
You guys pretty much, covered it all, but just for transparency for those watching, a lot of our work is based in Khartoum, but we are looking to expand beyond Khartoum. So a lot of you guys are super connected with a lot of organizations that are working outside of Khartoum. Thank you so much for that. But for those of you watching, if you know any organizations that are working outside of Khartoum, please do connect us with them. Yeah, that's that.
That's beautiful. Mazen, would you like to add anything?
Sorry, I was muted. I think they've given a great summary of it. Just to kind of speak on the chemistry department hand sanitizer project that we're working on, you know, we decided that sometimes, you know, prevention is better than the cure, kind of to steal a page from Muhammad's book, in quoting the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so in this case, you know, we decided that it's better to kind of get ahead because we're seeing what's happening here, for example, in the U.S. So, you know, going out of our way to kind of prevent or flatten the curve, should it happen in Sudan, would be a lot easier than to, you know, have to, you know, fundraise for ventilators and things like that, because that's a more expensive project. So alhamdulillah, you know, that's been a really great initiative, and alhamdulillah for the connects that we have within this particular coalition and collective. And alhamdulillah for the people donating as well. Again, you know,
Yeah.
but definitely please launchgood.com/Sudan to save.
So that was really great. And again, like thank you, Noon, for bringing that up, that a lot of the time the work is Khartoum centric. And we have to be very vigilant and very aware that Sudan is not Khartoum alone, and that there are a lot of other Aghalib and a lot of other places that require the same attention and the same thought process behind it. COVID is not just in Khartoum anymore. COVID has spread out to a lot of other cities. And so those food packages, those prevention equipment is going to be needed for those other cities. So I just want to reiterate what Noon said. If there are people who work with organizations outside of Khartoum, get in contact with the initiative so that we can start working, so that it can be pushed out to that end. We are heading up to the 40-minute mark, so we wanted to open it up. I am watching these comments. I don't know if you guys have the comments open on YouTube.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't see them.
So I have these loads of comments. So if you guys have any questions to the coalition, to an individual organization, please drop them in the comments. There is one question from Amro. He asks, do you all think it's easier with Ramadan to spread the message and get people to actively respond, or is it harder? Good question, Amr.
Well,
Yeah.
Great question.
Sorry. Go ahead, Mohammed.
go ahead, Rowan.
I think we're going to say the same thing, if not. But as part of the informational handout is to be able to spread it to the people that are passing out the family food packages. So we reach the people at home as well. A lot of them are going to be staying home, especially during the Hazr. But we aim to spread as much of the information through a physical handout. And inshallah, we hope eventually, I think this is still in the works, but we hope to work to do it virtually as well through social media, WhatsApp groups, anything, so that everybody knows exactly how to prevent this. As Mazen said, prevention is priority. We don't want to get to the point where we have to fundraise for ventilators and get really expensive hospital equipment and deal with the capacity of hospitals when we can do prevention instead. So it's harder. It is harder, but we still have an option to kind of navigate through it because we anticipated it.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think ultimately there's never a way not to do anything. I don't even know if that was like coherent, but like there's always a solution to a problem, right? Like who would have thought we'd ever reach the moon, right? But we did, leaving all conspiracy aside, right? But there is always a way. And I think like in terms of the fundraiser from that aspect, like in terms of Ramadan and fundraiser and all of that, I personally say when the devil's locked up, the pockets open up, right? So it's like people right now, you know, they're more inclined to donate, they're more inclined to support. And since it's Ramadan and it's there's a lockdown, like people are at home doing nothing, right? So it's like people, they want to be engaged. They want something, like they want these types of activities. They want to be at home right now, just having this open on their YouTube and just watching it, right? People want to be engaged. So I think at a certain level, yes, it's harder from a certain perspective, but it's also easier from a certain perspective. Like right now, we have more of their time. We can hit them with messaging more. We can open up their pockets more. We can get them emotionally invested more. So I think, yeah, it's harder from one sense, but it's also easier in a lot of other senses. But there's always a solution.
Brilliant, love it. Okay, so we have a few questions. So from Aya, have you decided who will be receiving the family food packages?
So for that question, so who will be receiving the food packages? So Fill a Heart is an organization that is leading the family initiative. And so they are on the ground and they are targeting vulnerable families and vulnerable populations. So these are individuals who rely on daily cash income. They need to work in order to survive. So these are the individuals who are put as priority. They're given these food packages and cash assistance to be able to abide by the stay-at-home initiatives without having to fall into economic hardships.
That's
Brilliant.
beautiful. I think the next question is, sorry, Ala.
Go for it.
The next question from Tabarak is, what's one thing that you've learned from one another?
It's a good question.
I would say staying organized and taking the initiative and just not to be intimidated by taking that first step. Yeah. And really utilizing actually the networks that the connections and the networks that you've created.
I think it's a truly eye-opening experience because although they were strangers to me maybe 2-3 weeks ago, now I feel a sense of community and I can feel like the sense of Sudan exuding from everybody. So no matter how different we are geographically, there's always something connecting us together. And we all have that spirit of, we want to help Sudan. No matter how hard it could be, how there's things that are going to come up that may be novel, we can still navigate through it, and each person has a creative way to do it. So it's just more of an eye-opening experience. It's beautiful, honestly. It kind of makes me emotional just to think that no matter what, Sudan is always in everybody's heart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think like there's a lot of talented people like that. That's one thing that I learned. Like, mashallah, the doctors among us. Mazen over here is an amazing poet and like, you know, accomplished. And, you know, I think the one thing that I always am so impressed with and that I've always loved is that Sudani people, no matter how long you've known them, whether it's like 10 days, 2 years, or 2 days, right? It always feels like you guys have been friends forever, right? So right now I'm looking at the chat and people are coming at Minnesota and coming at us. Right? See, it's like, it's all love. And meanwhile, Tertil, the person that's like one of the people that are coming at us, she wasted like 3 hours of my past 3 weeks trying to make that iced coffee with like the fluffy stuff.
Yeah.
Because she didn't tell me you're supposed to use instant coffee. So I'm like sitting there with a khalata, like, so, you know, at the end of the day, it's all love, and it's as if I've known all of you guys since forever, and it's alhamdulillah because we share the same religion, we share the same culture, we share the same background, we share the same problems, our families, like alhamdulillah, our life is relatively privileged and good over here, but we all have first cousins that are struggling in Sudan, right? So it's that shared experience that we've all been through and that we've all lived that just really connects us. And, you know, I feel like you guys are all family. I'm not gonna say.
He's gone off the camera, but I think also one thing that's been beautiful about the coalition is that it's sort of broken all those stereotypes that tend to surround Sudani organizations and Sudani collaborations. It is another message of sort of the way things are changing and the outlook to how things are changing. Things are being done differently, but they're being done differently because we've learned that the old way doesn't work. The old way in which ego plays a part in it, in which sort of wanting to make sure there's always other reasons behind the main mission reason to go forward. And I think that's one thing that has been really great about the coalition is breaking those stereotypes and breaking those oh, it's too difficult or whatnot. It's just being done, and we're getting it done. Everyone's being involved, everyone's getting it done, and everyone has this one, like you said, shared experience and shared common goal, and that's a beautiful thing to see.
Really quickly, Muhammad خجلتني لكن my face is like, you guys can't see it, but I'm really pink. I think one thing that I've also learned from everybody else is that, you know, it's okay to ask for help, you know. So there's a lot of things that I don't know how to do, you know. And so like me and Muhammad, for example, we're discussing translations, you know, and how we're going to translate words, you know, and we're going back and forth and we're like, okay, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. We need to ask another person. Let's ask so-and-so. And those types of conversations are healthy because I actually learned a bunch of things from, you know, our coalition. I've stereotypes that we all can't work together because there's an ego that exists is completely shattered, you know. And even from that, as Noon was mentioning earlier, we built connections, we built groups. Now I know that I can turn to, you know, SDN if I need something, and you know, I know what their network looks like, they know what my network looks like, and so on and so forth. But I've also learned that, you know, like you don't know everything. You know, there's a lot of ways in which I can help the coalition, but there's a lot of ways that I also can help. I know my own limits, and I know what I can and can't do. And so, you know, picking up where everybody is falling behind or where people's weaknesses are is something that's definitely been humbling. And it's been a beautiful experience because the way that we've gone about it is not that, oh, you can't do this, but it's here, let me help you in this situation, you know, or let me make your life easier in this way. And it's a very beautiful, thing. And again, I share Rowan and Muhammad's sentiment that, you know, I feel like we become a nice little family.
Yeah.
It's also a glimpse into a better future for Sudan. You know, it changes like a ripple effect. You know, it starts off by you just doing however much you can, however small the gesture is, but really it isn't small, it means a lot, you know. And it's especially for the diaspora doing work or servicing, you know, our people in Sudan, there's always that fine line of us trying not to come off as saviors, but at the end of the day, إحنا أولاد بلد, you know, and we do have the same responsibility that those that live in Sudan have towards their own country. So just
Beautiful stuff.
Yeah, snaps.
That's beautiful
True.
answers, mashallah.
Yeah, mashallah.
We have
Okay.
about 3 more questions, right? Or 4 more questions. So go for it.
Yeah, mashallah. There's so many amazing questions here. It's hard to pick one. There's one from Walid al-Diani, I think. And he's basically asking, as this campaign progresses or this Sudan the Safe initiative, would it be possible to share 1 or 2 stories of the individuals that, you know, lives have been changed because of this initiative? I feel like I can answer that for you. If you look at, for example, they mentioned the Fill a Heart campaign, and if you look at their page on Instagram, they're always sharing like the family initiative that's currently ongoing and how they're delivering the food to the different families, and they're sharing like these amazing pictures on their page. So definitely, yeah, if you go to the Instagram accounts of, you know, Fill a Heart, for example, you can see the actual food being delivered and all these pictures. So I think that could answer that question.
Yeah, and I can add as well. So I think this also inspires a lot of different folks to also kind of form some sort of collaboration. So when I was speaking to an individual, so he's a doctor in New York, and so they heard about this collaboration, and they were like, "Oh, we are really like working or looking to do something the same," because in New York there's so many cases happening, and what they're doing is they're trying to create a resource for the Sudanese community in New York. So they had a lot of deaths there as well. And so what they're really doing is they're trying to form like a hotline for folks to call and ask questions and have it in like Arabic and make it very like culturally specific and be as a resource for Sudanese communities everywhere. So kind of inspired folks, so not just for COVID in Sudan, but for Sudanese communities in all different places facing the pandemic right now.
I'm glad you brought that up because currently MFS is working on putting together a very in-depth COVID-19 resource sheet for the DMV area. It should launch in the next week. So we can definitely share that with everyone just as a reference of how we got it done.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. I
Definitely.
think, Ghaida, are you talking about the Sudanese American response team?
Oh, I never heard of that, but that's pretty cool. There's another one, Sudanese American Physicians Association. So they're working as well to the hotline. But yeah, it's pretty cool to hear these different organizations and what people know. There's so much out there, and when we come together, we kind of learn from each other, the different organizations and different efforts.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I think they do have a hotline as well. I think they may be working together. So where it could be a resource, financial resource, and also how to mentally navigate through this pandemic. So that's awesome to hear.
Great. We have another question from Hadil, who asks, what do you guys think has been your biggest accomplishment in the past year? What is something valuable that you've taken away with you?
Is this talking from a personal perspective or from?
I think
as an
I
organization.
think we can yeah, we can do it as organizations.
Okay.
And maybe to add to that, like I think we kind of already answered that, but on a personal level as well, how being a part of that achievement has kind of affected you or you as an individual and for the best, affected you for the best.
Yeah, I can start. So I think one of like our biggest accomplishments or something that really made me proud is how fast we came together and started putting together rallies. So from the first point that we met and talked about starting the Sudani American Collective to our first rally was exactly 3 days. And we stayed up till about 4 a.m. every night, creating posters, planning, creating press releases, doing everything, right? Almost, and when I say we, I'm talking about like 20 to 40 people every night at the snap of a finger. And a lot of these people I've never met in my life, or maybe just have said salam alaikum to them, right? So how fast we got together and started everything. And then our first rally, we had 300 people come out to the Capitol. And just keep in mind that the Sudani community in Minnesota is not that big. It's somewhere from, at least in the Twin Cities, it's somewhere from like 60 to 100 families. So you're not even like, it's not that many people, and 300 people, most of them were not Sudanese, right? And we had Ilhan Omar's entire staff come out to the rally. Her daughter was there. And alhamdulillah, based on that, she spoke to, I believe it was the Senate, after one of our rallies, and her daughter came to every single rally after that. And I think that's one thing that I was like really proud of, is just how fast we came together and how fast everybody was invested and the success that came out of it.
That's beautiful.
This may come off really cheesy, but for the longest time, I've always wanted to give back to Sudan some way, somehow, and I couldn't conceptualize it. Like, how is one person going to be able to do this? And I've seen a lot of the organizations, and I thought it was such an abstract idea to join. But alhamdulillah, I got the opportunity to meet all these really amazing groups of people and learn from them. And yani, mashallah, to speak to Muhammad's point that, yeah, we didn't take 3 days, mashallah, tabarakallah, but we are working towards making sure that Sudan is being taken care of one way or another. So I think that is one of my biggest accomplishments, to be able to join a group of people that have really a strong heart for Sudan and Like Noon said, we are Nas Balad. We love our country so much. No matter what courses we go through, there's always a way to give back. And alhamdulillah, we found each other to push forward that mission.
I guess I'll go next. So for SAND, which is the Sudanese Americans for Nonviolent Demonstrations, I think one of our biggest accomplishments was just getting together a team of people from different backgrounds, and then, you know, making sure that we could. We had a plan to essentially, you know, host a bunch of protests in DC, and just making sure that we could execute that plan accordingly. We did nothing like you guys did, Mohammed. It took us 4 months. It took us 4 months to host our first rally. But alhamdulillah, you know, just making sure that that happened, and seeing just the Sudanese communities from all over come out. You know, we had people who told us they drove from California to come to DC to attend a rally. And I was like, what the heck, you know, like that's dedication. I'm coming from New York, and I'm like, bro, I don't want to wake up at 5 a.m. to get, you know, so like that was really beautiful. And I think that was something that was really valuable to me. It's that, you know, it's not just us in New York who are experiencing, you know, this homesickness and this want to help Sudan, but it's a collective experience that the whole diaspora is experiencing together. You know, it's like a collective yearning for a better Sudan and for a better home. And so I think that definitely put things into perspective for me, which makes it easier to, you know, collaborate with organizations and to ask for help, you know, and doing these things that are Sudan based, because we realize that like our goal at the end is to want a better Sudan and, you know, a better future for Sudan. So personally, I think that's kind of, for me, for SAND, that's what happened. For SIN, it's just getting together a bunch of people again, who have different backgrounds, and we're from different places. Everybody thinks New York City is like this tight little thing. It's not, you know, we have like, even within the city, we're beefing. We're like, you know, this part is better than that part. So like getting together people from, you know, from different parts of the city, and just, you know, hosting the rallies that we hosted in New York was also really beautiful. And putting aside, you know, the tribalism, the culturalism, all that other stuff, to come together and be Sudanese above all else has definitely been the most valuable thing that I've taken from this year.
And from an SCN perspective, I think the biggest accomplishment that I've seen was definitely the conference. So bringing together all people from all different places. And I think I heard one story where there was a lady who hasn't been to Sudan for about 14 or 17 years, and she came just for the conference. So that was pretty epic to hear. And so I think it's all about building capacity. Like alone as an individual, we feel kind of lost. Like we don't have, like we kind of feel like we're kind of like lost. Even our sanity sometimes is like just drops, because especially during the revolution, when we're seeing all of this happening, all these problems and all these issues, like we see it as this is so much and too much for us to handle. But when we come together and we like experience these traumas and these successes together, as a community, it really comes to show that we can overcome all of this, and together we are able to basically accomplish what we put our minds to, really.
That's beautiful.
As for MFS, I'd say, you know, since MFS has been in a hiatus for a while, I can't remember how long exactly, but this new board, we just revived it last year. So, and this collaboration is considered one of our first and biggest collaborations, and our first work directly in Sudan. So it's been a great experience. This is, you know, an accomplishment for us, to meet all these amazing people, to give back, and to just be part of something bigger than ourselves. And to not focus just on our immediate community in the DMV, but also in our extended community in Sudan.
That was really beautiful, guys. So we have one more question. The last question is from Nooni. It's actually a really great question. What would be the first 3 steps you would advise someone to take if they want to start up an initiative?
I guess I can go with this one. So I would say the first thing is bring together 2 or 3 or however many people you have, really strong individuals who are dedicated to the mission. So once you have like a small group of people that you can rely on, then you can really kind of go forth. and do like all the paperwork and all whatnot to make yourself official. But once you have like a dedicated group of people, that would be the first step, is to gather some folks that have the same mission, have the same goal as you. As for the second step, I would say look into sustainability. So a lot of groups and a lot of initiatives, they do something and then kind of things fizz out, and that's natural. Like we kind of get busy with life and things kind of take over, and so we're not as focused on this group project or this initiative that we're doing. And so I would say like kind of have a sustainability plan for moving forward. So it's natural to have like ups and downs in activity, but kind of have like, what is our long-term vision? And then lastly, and a third step, I would say, I guess that's when all of the logistics and technicalities come to hand. So that would say like build a strong communication. Yeah, communication is key for sure. So build a strong communication methodology. So are you going to be communicating through teams, have a platform, and then also work through logistics of finance and logistics of having a legal entity or a nonprofit status or that kind of thing. So I'd say first have your people, and then everything else comes later in terms of logistics.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think she summed it up pretty amazingly. Some other points to consider, I'd say, and this is like generally a rule with, even if you're doing a startup, like a for-profit startup, like talk to people, tell as many people as you can about it, because a lot of people, even in startups, they're afraid to tell people because somebody's going to steal their idea. For someone to steal your idea, they need to know exactly what your idea is. They need to have your motivation. They need to have your energy. They need to have your time. They need to have your money. They need to have your connections. There's so many things that they need to do. So it's a common misconception that if I share my idea, someone's going to steal it. No, when you share your idea, you're going to get new connections, you're going to get new knowledge, you're going to learn about easier ways to do it. You're going to learn if there's somebody already doing it that maybe you can just partner with them, or somebody that already built a framework that just didn't have time to build it out, right? So you're going to make all these connections and learn all of these things that you otherwise wouldn't have known. So I'd say like just talk to as many people about it, tell as many people, and they'll connect you to the right person. They'll make a connection you'll never know existed before. Yeah, like talk to people, see what's already being done. Don't try to recreate the wheel, like build off of the wheel, make it better. But yeah, just get started. That's like the hardest part, right? We all have all of these amazing ideas, and if we all became rich off of our ideas, we'd all be billionaires. But it's not about the idea, it's about who actually takes the time to do it. There was like one quote that the guy on your Instagram live 2 days ago said, the guy from Philahart, and God, I wish I want to. He said something like,
I know which one.
Getting started needs commitment, but continuing needs
persistence.
That was amazing.
Yeah, amazing. He did a great.
Yeah.
Shout out to Muhammad from Philahart.
Muhammad Mustafa, yeah.
Another thing, you'll gain from sharing those ideas, you're going to gain some valuable feedback to really fine-tune and solidify that idea that you have. You'll gain the resources, the connects that you need to get in touch with to really execute what you have in mind. So sharing your ideas is very important. Constructive criticism is good.
I think also being able to like write things out, and that's a weird thing to say, but like when you begin to like write things out, you begin to see where the holes are and how you need to fix those holes. So like I have a friend who's starting up a business, and as she's writing out her business plan, she realized that she knew nothing about this very integral part of her business. And so she wouldn't have arrived at that had she not sat down and wrote things out. And so like, I think writing things out really helps. And also on top of that, to build off of that, being able to ask for help, understanding your own strengths and your weaknesses are very important. Like I'm a logistical person. I know nothing about marketing, so for me to start an initiative, I would need a marketing team. I can put together a team, but then executing the marketing, I would have no idea of how to go about doing that. So understanding where my strengths are and understanding where my weaknesses are and how to build together that team, as Leida said, is very important.
I think to add to that as well, and Rowan and Ghaida, if you could add to it, maybe also a lot of the times the fear of starting an initiative comes from, where do I get the capital to be able to do this? How do I get that support to be able to do this? Whether it's for profit or not for profit, but when the intention is so much larger than the problems that are arising, you find that way, you find that means, whether it be you putting in your personal capital, whether it be fundraising. So the biggest thing from what everyone here is trying to say is don't give up and do it. Like you said, just do it.
Just do it.
Because the reward at the end is, it's different. Someone was saying on the chat, and I want to read some of the comments out loud, but this isn't a job. This isn't your 9-to-5 job or the job that you bring in income or what you're studying. This is stuff that you're doing out of volunteer time, like out of your own spare time. And so everyone on this live is doing this in their spare time. Mazen has exams, like that has exams, people have work, like everyone's got other stuff going on. But there is this common sense that when you do good for good sake, for the sake of doing something good, there is a reward that is like uncomparable to any kind of financial reward or being sort of like highlighted or whatnot. It's just it's a good feeling inside that you're doing something productive with your life outside of what you have to do to sort of survive. So someone actually pointed that out, and I thought that was really beautiful. One other thing that was said that I want to read out, maybe add a little to. I think this was said, whether we speak the same language perfectly or not, whether we're from the same tribe or from different tribes, whether we're in the same city or not in the same city, that does not take away who we are and where we come from. It actually gives us an opportunity to bring fresh faces and ideas to the table. So Amar said that, and I thought that it kind of sums up this coalition and the panel discussion beautifully. So if you guys have any last words that you would like to say, or Tweety, if you wanted to sum up the conversation. Sorry, Ahmed, I have to stop calling you by your nickname. I apologize.
I'm used to it by now. It's okay. Actually, we got in one last question. Maybe we can just say this is the last one, and it's Nooni coming in with all the great questions. So, how do you all convince people to believe in your mission, basically?
Through action, through what we are presenting them with, through what kind of events or what kind of, this panel discussion, for example, we're convincing y'all of our each and individual mission. So it's just about really putting out some good work.
That's great.
I think
that, yeah, sorry, go ahead, Mazen.
Go ahead.
I was just going to add and say, like, I think that sometimes you don't even have to convince anyone. It's just like whatever you do attracts people, like-minded people to your cause and to your mission. So, like when I joined SDN, I didn't have to believe in the mission. I was just that the same ideas that I wanted as well, how to help back, how to give back to Sudan. So, like Noon said as well, so it's about your actions, about your mission, and it will attract people to you. I think it's the other way around.
Yeah,
Mazen, sorry.
Mazen, go ahead.
No, Ahmed, you summed that up perfectly, and you said it better than I could have.
The one thing that I was just gonna add is like إنما الأعمال بالنيات, right? Like correct your intention first, and inshallah everything will work out. It's like if it's meant to be, then it'll happen, inshallah. And if it's not, it's not, right? But as long as like your intention is correct, inshallah, you'll attract the right people, and Allah will make everything easier for you. Because at the end of the day, if you have good intentions, like good things will happen, inshallah.
Absolutely.
I'm laughing.
Anyone
at
else?
the comments right now as well. There's some funny comments on here. I wish you could all see them.
Tell us.
But they loved what you guys said. Oh, before we end this live, there's a really important point that I want to bring up, and Ahmed wants to bring up. It's Mazin's birthday today. So,
Oh,
on live, if you would wish him a happy birthday, send a little
We're all gonna
happy
sing
birthday,
in one.
Mazin. كل سنة وانت طيب.
Yeah,
Happy
كل سنة
birthday
birthday to
you.
you.
Happy
Happy birthday to you.
Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday to
Mazen.
Mazen.
Happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday to
to
you.
you.
Oh,
There you go.
you guys can't see it because of the lighting, alhamdulillah, but thank you guys so much for that. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Of course, enjoy it.
Yes.
Birthday
So
quarantine.
that was amazing, really, guys. So I think we can sum it up with the birthday song, and thank like seriously, thank you guys so much for this, like all the insights, and you're really inspiring, and mashallah, God bless all of you for the work that you do, and launch good / Sudan is safe. The bios in our page on Instagram, on Twitter, and all of these other organizations as well. You can find their details on our page on the recent story that we just put. So please follow them, stay up to date, see what they're planning and support. And we're in Ramadan, the month of giving. So whatever donations you guys can make, can help, can make a huge difference in Sudan. And inshallah, together we'll be able to make this huge difference. Yeah, thank you all. And anyone else wants to add any last thing?
If you guys want to know more about the organizations or joining them, will they be able to DM you guys on the Instagram pages?
Yes, definitely.
Yes, for sure.
Brilliant.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Talk to you
Hope
guys
have a good
soon.
day.
Have a great rest of your
Bye.
day.
Yeah.
Ma'as-salama.
Ramadan Kareem to everybody.
Allahu Akbar.
Allahu
Allahu
Akbar.
Akbar.